All right, today I'm going to talk about social media and how it can be either a blessing or a curse. Now, social media has become a big part of like everyone's lives nowadays because here on YouTube it was launched. I think first ones were way back in 2009, and of course that's around the time 2007 2009 time frame, and then Facebook came like I know I first joined Facebook back in 2009, and then of course the all the other ones have since come out. You've got stuff like Instagram, and of course like a big one nowadays that like a lot of people are on is TikTok. And so social media can either be a blessing or a curse in that we can either use it for our benefit or our detriment and everything. So when it comes to things like recovery, like like the smart recovery, it can lead to the 4 points, getting like our emotions, thoughts, and behaviors out of balance because like for instance, we go into Instagram and you're sitting there, you're scrolling through uh, uh, through just looking at like all these fitness models and everything, and like you think when you're just getting started, like, oh, I can never look like that. But like when you realize that that's only like a small percentage of the population, because the obesity rate before 2020 was around 40-45% or so, around there off the top of my head. And I wouldn't be surprised if now without I haven't looked at it, but I wouldn't be surprised now if it's well over 50% or whatever. So you might get discouraged just looking at all those uh, fitness models on Instagram and getting discouraged because I may never get there. But what you want to do instead is with Instagram, for example, is go on and try and find stuff that can inspire you to get better. One of the people that I follow on Instagram that was at the Athlete Next game is Matt Wennon. He's a power lifter, and he gets in does a lot of posts, and he does lives every week where he talks about different stuff of this conjugated training and everything. So you can get into something like that to use as an inspiration to okay, well, here's some information that I can use to get into what I mentioned, with the thoughts, emotions, behaviors. You can okay, well, here's information I can use to kind of balance that out and lead to the fourth point, or whatever, and lead in a balanced life and everything. And of course the two extremes, social medias use the endless mindless scrolling that you can do. And of course I'm guilty of that with TikTok, because TikTok is you get 50 and 30-second videos, or sometimes 1 or 3 minutes. You can just sit there and get something quick or whatever. But it can also be something good because I use TikTok to kind of put out some Nordic mythology information that I'm into and everything. So it goes both ways in that it can be detrimental in that, like I said, you can do that mindless scrolling, or you can use social media as something to kind of put out a positive message and everything. So here on YouTube or whatever, you could get into some of my opinion stupid channels where you're just watching people what's called a mukbang, where people are just sitting there stuffing their face full of food and everything, which pretty much gives you no value or whatever. Or you can get into YouTube channels what I did when I first started years ago with Athlete X that I've mentioned before. You can use that as stuff to kind of garner information, and instead of having to take a trip down to the library and checking out a bunch of books and maybe documentaries and everything, and then bring it home and having to sit down and watch it. You can sit there and jump onto online, whether it's through YouTube, with the channels I mentioned, with Athlete X, the Bioneer, or you can do that. So kind of save your time in a trip into town and getting books or whatever. So it'd be great for an introductory into topics and everything. So for me, the YouTube channels that I follow, that I've mentioned on other videos, use that as a kind of introductory to maybe better your physical health, or maybe you can use it into getting into like history or something. But like social media also is like can be Spotify, Pandora, and iHeartRadio, stuff like that could also be considered social media, because like I use Spotify and everything. So like this last year, like they do like the end of the year wrap up and everything. So like how much you listen, your top like music, top songs, top bands, and like you do like the top podcasts and everything. So like according to my readout, I ended up like listening to like over 61,000 minutes of music and podcasts, and apparently 2/3 of it was like podcasts. So like again, you can use social media as like a source of like inspiration, and use it as like knowledge. Like some of the top, like one of my two of the top podcasts that I was listening to on Spotify were Saga Thing, which a couple like medieval academics who work for a couple colleges, different colleges, they've gotten together, and like they started like 10 years ago, and they've been going through the Icelandic sagas. So I got into that this last year, and of course that was my top podcast. So they've been working through like all 40 or so of everything. So they're about 3/4 of the way through. Another one that like is the Nordic mythology podcast with Daniel Farron and Matthias Nordvig. So like you can, like I said, you can use social media as like an outlet to get garner information, which can lead you into like a kind of like you can use that as like maybe like a, not necessarily a college 101 type of deal, but like that kind of concept where you can use it as like an introductory into something, into like a topic, so you can start learning about it, and then like lead you like into like for instance like the Saga Thing podcast and like the Nordic mythology podcast that I mentioned that I listened to. I've used that as like an introductory into like the Nordic mythology, which I've gone on to get in like the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, which I've read, and like I do have a copy of some of the Icelandic sagas that's on my to read list. Of course, like yeah, to read list is like a mile long, and dozens of books and everything. So like I have more books to read than I have enough time to, it seems. So like you can like use, like I said, social media as like a outlet to garner information, to learn something, or like also like I said, like with here on YouTube, like what I'm doing, like what Athlete X and like the Bioneer channels that I've mentioned, that to put out information so that people can actually like get information, get a different perspective on like whatever topic you're looking at and everything. So you can kind of like, oh hey, here's a good point that the so and so has. Let me look into it further and everything. So like and like the same thing like goes like with TikTok. Like you can get into the some of the like stupid mindless stuff and everything, or you can get into like kind of get like a quick tidbits on something like like a like I do like 3-minute videos or whatever. Like recently I just finished up going over like the 24 runes in the Elder Fruth arc, that and that's what I use TikTok for. And so like you can get like something like a quick like tidbit on like any kind of topic, like to kind of spark that interest and everything. So like uh, so that's like a good side of it. The bad side, like I said, is like you get into the mindless like scrolling, which like I do quite a bit myself, and like I kind of have to get away from. And you could get into like yeah, useless arguments with people that you've never met and everything. So like and you can kind of hide behind like that anonymity of like a keyboard, or like a be like a faceless avatar, and kind of get like into like pointless arguments on any number of like topics like politics or religion, or anything like so it's pretty much social media is how we use it and everything. So like yeah, and for the most part, I do use social media as like an outlet for like uh for things to like learn on like topics that I'm into, like I mentioned Nordic mythology. I'm also big into like physical fitness and nutrition and stuff like that, so I've used that to kind of like build up my knowledge of that and everything. So like you may not necessarily be into those topics and everything, but what you can do is like you can get into like, maybe you're into like some of the different African mythologies, or maybe like you're into psychology, or maybe you're into like astronomy, or like any number of topics. So what you can do is like you sit there, you go into YouTube, search for like for instance astronomy, like search for channels for that. So like and then you start watching videos like first one you may come across me like the astronomy video, maybe talking about the moon or something. So like you like, okay, well here's like they're talking about like the different phases of the moon, so you can use that to kind of like get into like an introductory and kind of get the mental gears working. Like, okay, well here's some concepts that I have like interest in, so like let me double check with the actual like books, and maybe like I can do like web searches and like a Google search on like articles and stuff that I can start researching on. And but like I said, like the negative aspect of social media is like anyone can see is like you can get into those like useless arguments over over stuff that like at the end of the day may not really, or just doesn't matter to you directly and everything. So like it ultimately depends on how we as individuals use the not just social media, but we can also use the internet as well and everything. Until next week.